To order. Sergeant Arms, please secure the chamber doors. Members, please take your seats. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President.
All right, Senators, on this very happy St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, we are joined again by Chaplain David Stadler of the Legislative Prayer Caucus here in Annapolis, guest of the distinguished senator from the 35th District. Please rise for the invocation.
Please pray with me. Eternal Father, thank you for giving us this day. Last week was tough. After a short weekend, we are back at it again this morning. But despite our weariness, we offer this day back to you as worship. For you gave it to us in the first place, and it's all we have to offer. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow is not here yet. So we start by just being grateful for the millions of things that had to happen, both in our world and in our bodies, for us to be here today. It's our tradition, it's our custom, it's our habit, even to begin each day in this chamber with prayer. Thankfully, we pray to the one who already knows our needs and who desires to give good gifts to those who love him. We are reminded of other days. In this very building, on December 23rd, 1783, General Washington thanked not himself, but rather the cause, the people, and the patronage of heaven for all that had been accomplished. Almost 250 years later, we still have a great cause. We have a great people, and once again, we pray and ask for the patronage of heaven in all that we do here today. We ask for your continued mercy and wisdom, which far exceeds our combined wisdom, and the strength to show each other just a dim reflection of the love you have shown to us. As we cross over and puzzle through issues from different perspectives, may we constantly remember that that which unites us is far more powerful than that which divides us. We humbly ask that today be remembered not for who was here, but for what great things happened for Maryland. We thank you for your faithfulness to Maryland at all times and throughout all generations. Amen.
Recognized Senator from the 35th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's great once again to have Dave Stadler, the leader of our Wednesday morning prayer and Bible study group here. He came in on short notice, did a wonderful job. We appreciate you, and I would just like to ask that his prayer be journalized.
Absolutely. Without objection, we will journalize the invocation. And thank you, Senator. Thank you, Reverend, for your wonderful start of the day. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 42 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland is again back in session. Senators, I come bearing greetings. I heard last night from our good friend Mark Daly, who is the Senate President in Ireland. Many of you all remember he was here last year. He was hoping to be here again this year for St. Patrick's Day, but he was sent to a different place. Interestingly, in Ireland, all of the top officials during this week are sent across the globe to do emissary, and so in all of executive, all of the legislative, they all go to different places in the globe to spread the will of the Irish people. And so interesting little feature. He thought he was going to be back. He's not, but he sends his well wishes on this St. Patrick's Day. So I told him I would pass that along. I don't think we have any resolutions today. Any introductions? Senator from the 37th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would now be the appropriate time to introduce our pages for the week?
Senator may proceed.
Okay. Colleagues, please join me in giving a warm Senate welcome to our pages. Our first page hails from District 15, Clarksburg High School, Layla Bachecki. Our next page hails from District 30, Broadneck High School, Julian Hallman. Our next page hails from District 9, Howard High School, Jean Lee. The next page hails from District 24, Bowie High School, Lydia Murray. Our next page hails from District 28, Maurice J. McDonough High School, Ava Rolich. Next page is District 11, Towson High School, Serena Saki. Next page hails from District 36. She's homeschooled. Her name's Sophie Solzenfuss. I apologize, Sophie. And our last page hails from my district, District 37, Colonel Richardson High School, Carly Van Skyke. Carly? And then to wrap up the protocol announcements, Mr. President, colleagues, please find on your desk a little St. Patrick's Day libation. You've got some beads, a teacup, just to get everybody in the spirit.
Libation, by libation, the senator means snacks. Is that correct?
Yeah, joy.
So for those listening at home.
Yeah, a little St. Patrick's Day joy. There's a teacup in there.
Wonderful.
Beads and a snack.
Perfect.
And, a lot of work goes in putting these together. Allison O'Brien and my co-chair, Senator, permission to use the senator's name.
Senator may proceed.
In Senator Giles' office, Allison O'Brien, and in my office, Carrie Doyle, which is a true Irish. I mean, we're in the spirit here. Allison O'Brien and Carrie Doyle spent a lot of time organizing this, so I'd like to give them a round of applause and recognition.
Absolutely. We thank them.
And we wish everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much, and thank you for the team. Very spirited. We don't have Danny Boyd. It was on crossover. We knew it was going to be a busy day, so the wonderful team at the Protocol Committee helped out with a nice little goodie bag of treats. So we thank them for that. All right. Any other introductions before we jump in today? If not, schedule-wise, we're going to try and get through as much as we can here today. Hopefully, most all of it. We'll see what time it is. Maybe 1, 2, something along those lines. We may then come back for a midday session, depending on where things are and what they look like. So maybe, depending on timing, maybe 2:30 or so to 4:30. And then we have executive noms today, and then we'll come back at 8 for our regular last stretch. So probably 3 sessions today. We'll see. We'll see how the morning session goes, but just kind of keep that in mind. So if you have meetings today, just might be the right time to farm them out if you can. So we're gonna be busy on this crossover day. So, all right. Anything before we jump in? If not, so be consider the reading of the journal from the prior legislative day. We're gonna start with the layover calendar. This is number 15. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 449, Senator Folden, Frederick and Washington counties, bow hunting, openly carrying handguns. Question is on the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable report.
Question is on the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 449 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Next, we've got layover calendar 2424. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 250, Chair, Education and the Environment Committee, Department of Environment, Fees, Penalties, Funding, and Regulation. Question the adoption of the 3 committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, question is on the 3 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, committee amendments. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 3 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Yes, recognize the Senator from District 2 on the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an amendment.
Just give us one moment, Senator. Let's see on the report. Any discussion of the report? And Senator, are there any questions that the Senator has ahead of the amendment to the floor leader? If not, okay, okay. All right, on the report, any further discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Senator has passed out an amendment. The pages are, has handed over the amendment. The pages are passing out the amendment. We will have it on the board momentarily. Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week when we were discussing this, there were some concerns I know from the minority leader and some other folks here in regards to some of the language in here in regards to if the department could take back basically control from the local health department. There was some concerns of whether that was a local issue or local control issue, things of that nature. So basically what this amendment does simply, it deletes the language in regards to withdrawing authority, and then there's additional language in there that basically indicates if the department has the authority, then they can assess the fees. I think the question was basically the lineage between being able to assess the fees, but they had to have the authority to do it. This just basically clarifies this. There's not any taking of local control, and that the department can basically initiate this if they so have the authority to do it. So I press the amendment.
All right, the maker of the amendment has moved the amendment. Madam Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had the opportunity to discuss this amendment and would like to thank the amendment sponsor. MDE is fine with this, and so we'll take this amendment as a friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment. All right, any objections from the floor? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there further amendments? Appears so. Recognizing the minority whip who has an amendment, pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment. Pages are going to get their steps in today. It appears, maybe not, we'll see. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are two spots in this bill that deal with fees, and in both cases, the fees are tied to the Consumer Price Index. The first one is dealing with air quality control permit fees in existing law, and they go up and based on the Consumer Price Index. The second fee is this new fee that was just discussed with the prior amendment, dealing with the on-site sewage disposal permits and well construction permits. And in the bill, with the committee amendments, there is a tying of these permits to the CPI. It does have a cap on there of they may not annually increase it more than 3%. So my amendment simply says we've gotten ourselves into trouble in this state. We're one of the most expensive states in the country to live and do business in. And one of the things we've done a lot over the years as a body is tie things to CPI. So it's set it and forget it. And that's part of what's gotten us into a situation where it's much more difficult for folks to be able to afford to live here and do business. I think it's important to justify fee increases and come before us, or at least have to go through a regulatory process, even if it's a fee that doesn't come before us for a vote. So my amendment would just strike those two CPI fees out, and I would ask the body to support the amendment and move the amendment. I did share it with the floor leader. It seems like 3 weeks ago, but I think it was Friday. So I move the amendment, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Senators move the amendment. Let's hear from the floor leader.
Thank you. I would like to thank the amendment sponsor for sharing it with me. However, unfortunately, this is not a friendly amendment. We have numbers of fees that take 10 or 15 years to update. Tying it to the CPI is commonplace. And furthermore, when I checked with MDE, they mentioned that under Title V of the Federal Clean Air Act, a state program must be fiscally sustainable, and the CPI adjustments help MDE comply with that federal requirement. I urge the body to resist this amendment.
All right. On the amendment, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I had a feeling that might be the case, the response. Let's just, number one, I'd like to ask for a roll call on this. We've tried to do this session to spotlight the innumerable fee increases that can come that a lot of them don't come before us, but some do, and we want to be sure we're mindful of that as we consider tax increases and a budget deficit. My friend from Howard County, who I enjoy having conversation with on legislation, on public policy, but to say that the CPIs are pretty commonplace, it's not really. There's a lot of fees that are not set by CPI. They're not set to CPI in our code. In fact, in the first 2 years of Governor Moore's administration, over 300 fees were raised, most of which did not, or taxes, most of which did not come before us, but they had to be raised through regulation, and they were indeed raised by the Moore administration. So we've had fees just bouncing up higher and higher. We've had tax increases last year as it relates to car registration and other things. This is just another example of the continual creep of cost of living and cost of doing business. So I just would urge the body, let's put a stop to it for this. Let's remove the CPI and have these departments have to justify their increases instead of just having it on autopilot. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right. On the amendment, with no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 27 votes in the negative, the senator's amendment fails. Are there further amendments to the bill or its title? Recognize the senator from District 9.
I have an amendment.
Senator has an amendment. The pages will collect and distribute the senator's amendment.
One of the,
Give us just one, let's just make sure. There's gonna be a lot of amendments flying, so just wanna make sure before it gets loaded in, it's the right one. Not just on this bill, but generally. All right, Senator may explain the amendment.
for the first time ever in this bill, we're setting up a fund that will help people who are financially distressed pay for the repairs of the high-risk safety dams. This amendment, there's a 527 some dams across the state, and this amendment just says that we will prioritize the individuals who own these dams before the companies that do.
Interesting. All right. All right, Senator moves the amendment. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 250 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, let's go to our other layover bill. This is number 27. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 901, Senator Augustine, Environment, Packaging Materials, Producer Responsibility Plans. Question is on the adoption of the 7 committee amendments and the favorable report.
All right, question is on the 7 committee amendments, the committee amendments. Any discussion of the committee amendments? Recognize the minority leader on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just if the floor leader could yield for questions.
Floor leader yield for a question. Senator may proceed.
Thank you very much. Just trying to go back to Friday on this bill. I know it's 44 pages, but could you just give a quick briefing on that again, please, on what the bill with these amendments, the 7 amendments would do?
Sure. So basically, with the amendments, we are setting up the framework to create a producer responsibility organization that will, over the course of the next set of years, will build plans for the brands that are out there, for the covered materials, to create a structure that has eco-modulation, which means that it will basically put incentives in the right place such that the cost associated with recycling, reusing these covered products, which is primarily plastic containers on your like your dishwashing liquid or other things that are similar to that we are going to do our very best to make it a more circular economy, that when they go into our blue bins at home, that we make sure that they are reused, recycled over the course of the next set of years at a rate higher than what we currently do, which is approximately 30%. We're hoping and looking to up that up to 50% and eventually get to that which is the sort of the best in the world, which is up to 70%.
So in saying that, there's a citizen component to this. In order for this to work, citizens have to use the blue bins or have to recycle.
That is an example. There are a variety of different methods that can be used, or that's just one to just sort of explain what it can be. Of course, this is very flexible, so we do have convenience centers across our state, so it also incorporates convenience centers in addition to other methods of creating that, but the intent is to create the mechanisms and the ways to get much more of this into a circular economy, but that was illustrative and not complete.
Okay, but there's also the corporate component, right? That they have to participate in this plan?
That is correct. They must participate. If they fit the criteria for the brand owner, they are required to register and to participate in this process and pay the associated fees that would be associated with making sure that we are creating this far more circular economy. When they do that, we're going to make sure that they do it in a way that encourages them to make it as cost effective as possible for our entire ecosystem, such that we know, or rather that it will make it such that it in the end will not cost Marylanders any more. It's actually going to cost Marylanders less as we design this over the course of a number of years, because it's going to be a far more efficient system as it has worked in other parts across the world.
Okay, and appreciate that. I think the Minority Whip on Friday mentioned the similarities to the paint stewardship bill. Is this run by a third-party entity, or how is this implemented?
This is different than the paid stewardship bill in that there is not a consumer component associated with this. There is a third-party entity that we have already contracted with that creates the producer responsibility organization. They are the industry leaders, or CAA is an entity has been already brought on board to do just that, but they are the industry leaders, best practices in the space.
Okay, and is that what the fiscal note is addressing when it talks about the cost of this program? Or
that is a portion of the cost of the program, which will be borne by the brands, the members, as it were, of the PRO. So their dollars, their funds, and we've actually put in moving backwards as well to recapture some of the costs associated for the state in order for them to be paid for by the producer responsibility organization.
Okay, and then obviously there's a concern, does this get passed on to the consumers? Mm-hmm. And are there any type of safeguards that prohibit that from happening, or is this just another expense consumers will have to bear?
The safeguards are that we will have plans that will be set up by the PRO, but then also reviewed by the advisory council, which includes a cross-section of stakeholders, and then finally approved by the Maryland Department of the Environment, who will be charged with making sure that these plans are in the best interest of our state and therefore would not be creating additional costs for Marylanders.
Okay, is there specifically something, I mean, it sounded like this would be a recommendation that it's not passed on to consumers, but is there something specifically saying who needs to bear these costs?
The costs are borne by the producers. It is not explicit, the language that you're referring to is not explicitly there, but it has been the case that the producers do bear it as a cost of doing business, but it's a more efficient cost of doing business, again, because this also encourages them and creates a circular economy where they're able to receive back some of these materials that were a part of the packaging as well. So we work very hard here to create a far more efficient system that will work for everybody. Sometimes in order to create a more efficient system, you've got to stop and get all the stakeholders all together, and you have to have a convener that's able to do that. That's what this program is. It's a convener which allows for a far more efficient system with these products.
Okay, and then finally, you did mention that there's potential for cost savings with this. Can you just explain where we would see cost savings and who benefits from those potential cost savings?
Marylanders will immediately see a change for their local and municipal governments, where there is a portion of the costs that are offset over time that are associated with their programs for recycling as of right now, and the sort of the recouping of these particular pieces. So the way that it works is that it will gradually increase on the cost recovery associated with that from 50% moving up to 90% once we finally get to a full group. So that's going to save us money. Those are monies that we right now are paying for in our property taxes and other collection fees and all the things that we have for that. So they're going to see a cost savings there for sure. And then, of course, on the other side, we have built into this eco-modulation, which is that the fees that the brand are paying for will move up and down as they are easier to recycle, as they are easier to recover, such that it encourages them, if it's harder, If it's more difficult for us, if there's a potential that it's going to end up in the landfill, for example, is the example that I would give, if it's going to end up in the landfill, that's far more expensive to us overall. So we put into the fees that are associated with that incentives for them to be to create their packaging in a more eco-friendly way, so that that too will help to reduce the overall cost.
Okay, and then finally, are there a number of recycling centers in Maryland that would process this, or are these out-of-state businesses, or do you know where the recycling would go to?
It will occur within our current infrastructure. So we already have a number of facilities here in our state that are material recycling facilities. And those would continue to function in that way. It will also create the opportunity for us to have additional ones that, if it makes economic sense, to be able to process these. But this is for processing the materials that are here in our state, and to process them here in our state with the folks who are here.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for your responses. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on the 7 committee amendments, recognize the senator from the 42nd District.
Can I also ask a question?
The floor is yield. Senator may proceed.
I'm encountering this bill for the first time. Let me just give a hypothetical. We received some candy this morning, Hershey's candy. Will this bill require the Hershey Company to apply for permission to this council for their packaging? Every time they want to change their packaging, do they have to come back and get permission to do it, to sell their products in Maryland?
The Mars Corporation, who would be participants as the owners of the brand that's associated with the packaging.
Well, Mars is separate from Hershey's.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I read a book on that years ago. Mars broke off from Hershey's.
Forgive me forgive me for referring to any of them at all. Let's get back to the packager of a consumer product that tastes good. So we've got this consumer product that tastes good. It does have packaging. They will have to register with our state. There's a period of time for which they will be able to register with our state as as an entity that has a material packaging that's associated with them. And they would then become a part of the producer responsibility organization. They would work with the group to be able to determine sort of what the costs are associated with doing that, whether or not it can be or it can't be. And as that packaging is designed, as that packaging is basically signed up for it, there would be an associated fee that would be associated with the recovery for that particular packaging. So that would be that's a part of the process that occurs, and that is exactly how it works.
So the answer to my question is yes. Hershey's would have to get permission from Maryland and pay a fee for their packaging, and every time they want to change their packaging, they'd have to go back and get permission to change it and pay a fee, correct?
There is a registration fee, but they could also choose not to, but there are penalties that would be associated with that. It is the case that there is a framework for them to, as packagers, within the definitions, if they fit within the definitions that we have for packagers. We do have a significant number of exemptions that are also associated with it, that they would have to register and participate in the program. So that is, your answer is yes.
Okay.
But not on a one-off process.
So, Mr. President, my wife and I frequently go out and shop at Wegmans in Hunt Valley. Wegmans is a huge supermarket and seems to be miles of aisles with food products. Are you saying that every single national producer of a food which is sold at Wegmans is going to have to go through this process and pay a fee in order to sell their products in Maryland?
The number of producers who are doing this, and it is very true in the other states that the list is fairly long, they do have to register, and they will have to participate in this. That's absolutely the case. We have given a very significant runway in order to be able to do that. That's the reason why we have this is set up over the course of years, and this is a process that works quite well in other jurisdictions across the globe.
Okay, and it's not just in Wegmans. When we go to any other store in Maryland that sells products, Dick's Sporting Goods, for example, any place we go seems to have packaging. Williams Sonoma, you name it, it's got. So every single company across the country, even the world, that produces something that they want to sell in Maryland is going to have to go through this process and pay a fee, right?
If they do not fit within the exemptions, but here's what I would share as well, which is that while they are free to sell into us, which I'm very grateful for, we also bear the responsibility of taking care of that waste for every last one of those pieces as well. It's not as if we don't have to do that as a state. We do, and that is the case for all of the things that we have that are that we are consumed, that then we are then responsible for caring for. And so this just seeks to align that in a way that makes it such that those who are marketing into where we are paying their fair share of a portion of the cost that we are asked to bear. It does not prevent them from doing so. It simply says that they need to participate in this process, and it needs to align better with the cost. We make it such that if they do a better job, they pay less. It all works out for us.
Let me ask one last question then. Go back to Hershey's. The Hershey's company sells their products throughout the world, not only the 50 states, but other countries all through the world. Suppose Maryland says your packaging is unacceptable. Would this bill require Hershey's to design special packaging for Maryland, which would be distinctive and different from the packaging they use to sell their products elsewhere in the world?
No, sir. No, it does not. What it does is it accepts what the packaging is and then it assigns a value associated with it. It does not dictate to them what they may or may not do. This is working across the world as well. I mean, other countries have already implemented this across the world, so this is not a new process. They're very familiar with doing so.
Thank you. Could I, Mr. President, would it be possible to special order this bill to a later session today?
I would resist that.
So the Senator's moved to special order. The floor leader is resisting the special order. Let's see if on the special order, on the motion to special order by the Senator for 42nd, are there senators who have not yet spoken which to speak? Minority Leader on the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just on the special order, if you said that we're going to have 3 sessions today, I think the
Potentially.
I think the purpose is just to put it to the middle session. We are working with the Chamber of Commerce to try to get an amendment that might not have been able to be discussed at the committee hearing, and for that purpose, we were just asked for the special order to be granted so we can get that amendment.
All right, on the special order, let's hear from the floor leader.
I would seek to resist that. This was held over from the entire weekend. I was very well ready and expecting that would be the case. It's unclear what we will or won't do during the day today. I would ask that we resist that.
All right, on the motion to special order, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Noes have it. The motion has been rejected. We remain on second reader. Recognize the Senator from District 6.
Thank you, Mr. President. One question. I see what we're trying to do here, but I see what the effect that it could happen. How much more this would be burdensome to like our mom and pop shops? It's we all have around here in the state of Maryland, because most mom and pop shops are family owned and they're through generations of family. So how much more would this affect them?
Mr. President, amongst the list of exemptions in this bill, any entity that is under $2 million in revenue or that generates up to a ton of waste is exempted from the bill. So there is an exemption that's put into place in order to make sure that this is not negatively impactful to our small businesses.
And Mr. President, if I could, again, I think some of those that have prospered and done well, and if they're on that borderline of being there at $2 million, I'm just thinking by cost, the effect that it could have them, it could happen to them. I just don't want that to be burdensome to them. I think you understand that. So that's why I asked that, Mr. President. I just worry about them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question remains on the 7 committee amendments. Yes, recognize the Senator from 16th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the floor leader yield for a question, please?
Senator may proceed.
Thank you. There's been some confusion on the floor, and I just want to make clear, this doesn't say a company can't make its own decisions about the packaging, right? They don't have to come to Maryland and seek our permission, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then, so a company makes its own decisions on what their packaging will be, but who pays the end cost for that decision?
What we're attempting to do with this is to make sure that it is borne equally across the board. As it stands today, Marylanders are the ones who are paying for it. That's what we're trying to address in this piece of legislation.
I understand. So we as taxpayers are paying for a decision we didn't make right now.
That is correct.
I understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. On the amendments, recognizing the minority whip.
Can I ask the floor leader to yield for a question? I know we had some questioning on
Senator may proceed.
Friday.
Sure.
Why are taxpayers paying for it at all, or am I not clear? And just to be clear, Mr. President, this is a 42-page bill, which happens, and 7 committee amendments. I did lay it over Friday, but we had a lot happening Friday. So, why are taxpayers being required to pay this at all?
Taxpayers currently are paying in different ways. They pay for waste disposal right now. So just trying to sort of get where we're talking about here. Right now, we all figure out, we're a diverse state. So we figure it out, we do it different ways across our state. But at the end of the day, we right now pay for the collection and the traveling of, and then also either, the disposal of these products right now. And right now there is no sort of incentive for those who are creating it and are doing so. And we understand different things are appealing to people. The example that I often give is the laundry detergent that might come in an orange can, in an orange container. And that orange container, it like catches our eye when we're in the store. And so we're drawn to that orange container. But the issue is that orange container is very difficult to recycle. That orange retainer, because of the colorings that have already been put in there, it's very hard to get it to be able to be used for something else. But the reality is that if that orange container was instead a clear container with a paper orange label on it, all of a sudden it's a whole lot less. It's got far more value. Now when we are able to collect that and we get that can then be put back into there and actually to make something else. And so that's where right now we aren't set up for that way. We just got this orange container, and so we got to put it in the trash, or we got to do something. This is the intention of this, is to say that instead of Marylanders having to pay to fill up their landfills, having to pay for all that stuff, let's figure out a way to reduce that amount and to make it such that we're not doing that. But taxpayers, make no mistake, taxpayers are the ones who end up paying for municipal waste. That's our dollars. We may do so in our property taxes and things like that, but that's taxpayers that are paying for that.
Okay, thank you. And so if, to use the example, and I remember an early bill hearing with the orange, so to use that example, if that is a company, we won't use company names, but Smith & Wesson is making laundry detergent or whatever, and the orange container, they can't, for whatever reason, it isn't working for them to change it. They then pay, if they want to sell it in the state, they pay into this fund.
They could continue to use their orange container as the exact same, but the point is that the orange container it's less valuable. It's harder for us to kind of capture that value, and so that's fine. If you want to have an orange container, that's fine. That's your choice to do so. But that we shouldn't pay an extra premium as a state. Taxpayers shouldn't have to pay an extra premium for that if they could have simply made a different decision to make it work just as well for them from a marketing standpoint as it were in that current condition. That's all that this bill is about.
So instead,
but they are more than free. They can absolutely, does not change. They can absolutely choose to market it in that way. But what this organization will do over the course of years is determine the fact to say, hey, listen, this is more challenging for us to do in order to do it this way. Therefore, it's going to cost more to do it. We need to change how we, the overall cost of this particular product in the process. So we can accept that that's the case. But if it were clear, it would be less cost for all of us, and we reduce it for everybody.
So in that case, then they will pay a fee for?
Yes, that's the eco-modulation. Their fee will be a little bit more because it's harder for us. We got to figure out a way to do something with that end product that's different than if it had a market to purchase the product. If there's not a market to purchase the product after the fact, then it's going to go into our landfill. We're running out of landfill space. It costs us money to go to the landfill. We're trying to do everything we can to keep things out of that landfill.
That makes sense, whether I necessarily like the concept or not. I get what's going on. Now, if you are a company that your products are more recycle friendly, are you still paying a fee? And I assume the fee scales up or down. Is every producer in America, whether small, large, or big, paying a fee of some kind to this group?
We have exemptions that are there throughout the bill. There's a significant list of exemptions for things that would not be associated with that, for number one. Number two, there is still a cost. Even with that clear bottle, that clear bottle still has to be picked up by somebody. It still has to be transported. It still has to be cleaned. It's not as if there's just simply no cost in there. Why should the taxpayers be forced to have to carry that entire cost? That's what this is about. This is saying, hey, listen, taxpayers shouldn't have to cover that entire cost. Let's make this such that they don't have to.
However, it is true that this will add some. There's no way to get around it. It's going to add some cost to products sold in the state, though, correct? Because if we're adding a fee.
Again, because of the eco-modulation that's associated with it, we cannot, I can't say that would necessarily be the case, because if we're able, over the course of this period of time, when you're working together on this, to determine a more efficient process, it will in fact lower overall cost.
Thank you very much. And then I think for me, probably the final question that I would have, I was looking at some of the exemptions. So it does exempt out nonprofits and some of the other type 501c4 entities, which is good. Does anything that state government produce have to pay into this? I don't know that we do produce much, but we probably produce some things. Does anything that state government produces have to be a part of this?
I'm not aware of it.
Okay.
State level governments are exempt.
Okay. State and county. I'm assuming county, state, all exempt. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for answering the question.
All right. On the 7 committee amendments, further discussion. Yes, recognize Senator from District 1.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Floor Leader, please.
Senator may proceed.
Sure.
Mr. President, my question is that does the taxpayer, in your explanation, are they forced to buy this product that's in an orange container right now?
Mr. President, they are not forced to buy anything. But what we are inclined to have to do is to care for anything that ends up in our waste stream, which is what I was referring to. That is the place where whatever the pieces are, we will have to do something with it, and there is a cost associated with it.
Would you, Mr. President, consider that since we can choose to buy the product or not to buy the product, that the taxpayer actually, through that exercise, is demonstrating its position on packaging waste?
I can't see how that is the case.
If we have 8 people who do not want to buy an orange container product for the reason that it's orange and cannot be recycled, but out of the 10 people that have bought it, don't we already have this exercise that we don't have to put it into our waste because we can choose not to buy the product?
This piece of legislation and this program does not attempt to actually get in the way of marketers, get in the way of consumers at all. All it is simply is attempting to do is to create a far more efficient circular market for what exists. And so the individuals can choose whatever they want to choose. We just know that we have to do our very best to manage that process, to help to manage that process in this collective way once they have made those choices.
Would you not agree that a person's choice of a product is actually a way to reduce the tax bill for the state to get rid of the waste?
I don't understand exactly how those choices may or may not impact the recyclability of the particular product. I am not aware of individuals when they are seeking to purchase something in the orange container that they are thinking about the recyclability necessarily of it, nor is that what this is about. This accepts that they have choice, they can do what they must do, but that we then have responsibility on the other side, and this is simply trying to work with that responsibility.
Unfortunately, I believe that your answer doesn't address that we have choice. So if we did not want to buy an orange product that we feel would cost more to get rid of the packaging waste, we as residents in the state of Maryland have the option not to buy that product. And therefore, we would then be reducing our own individual trash bills. Is that not true?
Sure. I'm understanding. I'm trying to understand where you are. I'm not sure how that relates to this piece of legislation.
Other than I think we already have the ability to make conscious decisions not to buy products that are in packaging that are expensive to get rid of the waste. So therefore, to me, then the bill is not necessary because we already have that choice. If in your statement when you said that we don't know if somebody's going to get rid of the waste, then that's not correct. But
as I've shared, the underlying premise of what you have talked about, I suggest that this bill is not about a person's choice or lack of choice. This is about the end result of whatever the process is for these packaging products, and making sure that we are being good stewards of the environment, that we are being good stewards of our people's money by creating this program, which puts the responsibilities in the right places that are associated with waste, which we all know is a significant issue for us, without taking anything away from the choices that people may make. If individuals are out there making those decisions to be more economically friendly, that's great. That is fantastic. That's their choice to do so. But this piece of legislation does not speak to that one way or the other.
Mr. President, I do believe that we do have the choice. We do have the choice through our buying power to purchase products that we know may be detrimental to our landfills, may be detrimental to the environment. So I do believe the people of Maryland do have a choice, and therefore this bill is unnecessary.
Thank you, Senator. All right, recognize the chair of the committee.
Yeah, we're spending a lot of time on this. Would you gentlemen yield for a quick question? Until the sponsor of the bill mentioned that this orange Tide container was actually more difficult or I mean, did you know that? I mean, my question to you is informed choice. I mean, it requires some level.
Senator, just a reminder, refrain from a direct question to the senator.
Sure.
in the third person.
The senator from District 1, yield for a quick question.
Well, more just whether the individual senator's knowledge about a particular.
To answer your question, yes, I do know that recycling different products do have a different cost associated with it.
Okay, I'm just trying to bring up a point.
Not because of being in the Maryland General Assembly, just being a conscious person in the state of Maryland that understands that.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. President, I just wanted to flush out just kind of a simple proposition, which is the concept of choice suggests some level of information, education, and I would suggest that when one goes to a grocery market, they're not necessarily, as the sponsor pointed out, thinking ahead of landfills, the cost. They're just purchasing a product. I don't want to make a point or belabor the point, but thank you to the gentleman for at least yielding for that one very narrow specific question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. I didn't know the price, but I do know campaign signs, orange for campaign signs. People know it's the same reason I think it's wobbly orange in the marketing purpose. In any case, yes, Senator from the 43rd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the floor leader yield for a question, a contemplation? So the concept is, if I just want to make sure I'm understanding, that collectively, all together, we pay taxes or fees for waste management, just collectively. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that one of the things that we've done over the last 20 years or so is this notion of individual behavior change as a way of addressing the increase in the stress that packaging places on our municipal waste management system and the price of that. Is that
yes.
correct? So, you know, I'm trying to understand as a member of the committee the argument. So if I, for example, in my household, Mr. President, we recycle everything, we reduce, we do whatever we can. Are you aware of any sort of reduction in my taxes that would go to me choosing to not buy, for example, the orange laundry detergent?
I'm not.
Are you aware of any rebate program offered by the producer or state that if I, as an individual, make the choice to not purchase that product? Are you aware of that?
I am not.
Are you aware, and if I, for example, choose to decide that my individual load on the waste stream is 0, do I have the choice not to pay my municipal taxes or my waste management fees?
No, you do not.
Oh, okay. So is this bill, or part of what this bill is saying, recognizing that individual behavior change alone is not sufficient to address the costs on local local municipalities, nor the overall price to our ecosystem? Is that the point of this bill?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, on the 7 committee amendments on the Senate, are there any senators who have not yet spoken who wish to speak? If not, we'll recognize the minority leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just from a follow-up of number of questions, if floor leader could yield again, please.
Senator may proceed.
Just gathering, since I had last asked you a few questions, a number of concerns were brought up about landfills. Is it safe to say that this bill would try to relieve some of the pressure on landfills? Is that what you're looking at?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. That's what I was looking at. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, on the amendments, any further discussion? If senators who have not yet spoken, if not, recognize the senator from the 42nd District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, I'm encountering this cold, and I was in the process of eating a Reese's peanut butter cup when discussion started about orange products, and so I went into the reprint, and I'm on page 24 of 44. Earlier, I thought someone elicited from the floor leader the statement that you don't need to get permission in order to sell a product with certain packaging in Maryland. But I'm on this page. First of all, I ascertained that the word producer means manufacturer. So Hershey's company, which makes Reese's peanut butter cups, would be a manufacturer and would be classified as a producer under this bill. The language of the bill says, except as provided in subparagraph 2, which I don't think is relevant, a producer may not sell, offer for sale, distribute, or to import for sale or distribution covered materials for use in the state unless the producer individually or as part of a producer responsibility organization has an approved producer responsibility plan and file with the department. So am I not correct that if Hershey's wants to increase the size of their packaging from 2 peanut bars to 4 and use a bigger bag with, and again, using orange, that Hershey's would have to come back to the state of Maryland to get I used the word permission. The language in the statute is approval. You'd have to get Hershey's would have to get approval in order to sell a larger bag of Reese's peanut
Senator,
butter
there's a question
cups.
for the floor leader. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yes, it is.
Yes.
Senator Yield?
Yes. So the answer is Hershey's would have to get approval. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion on the committee amendments? If not, all in favor of the committee amendments say aye. Opposed, nay. Chair is in doubt. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call with 40 votes in the affirmative. The committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections to the amended report? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 901 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, on the next up, we've got all the bills that have crossed over from the House. So let's just read these in. We've got calendar 17. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 761, the Speaker, Maryland Uniform Disposition of Abandoned Property Act, revisions, finance.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills. They'll be referred to their appropriate standing committees. We've got another calendar, number 18. Clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 5, Delegate Wilson, criminal law, child sexual abuse material, artificial intelligence software, judicial proceedings.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills to their standing committees, please. And number 19. Clerk read the bills.
House Bill 84, Delegate Ebersol, transportation, major highway capacity expansion, projects and impact assessments, Transportation and Climate Alignment Act of 2025, budget and taxation.
Majority Leader moves to be considered the reading of the bills, and they will head to their standing committees. All right, let's, Madam Secretary, can we please ring the bells? We're going to get some of these. I want to make sure we get our Senate bills over, so there is no doubt. Let's start with a quorum call, please.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 42 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. Let's go to third reading calendar number 43. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 308, Senator Simon Eyre, election law, chief election judges, party affiliation.
Senate Bill 308 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 308, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 309, Senator Simon Eyre, Department of Veterans and Military Families Communications Outreach and Advocacy Program, alterations.
Senate Bill 309 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 309, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 310, Senator Simon Eyre, Education Youth Suicide Prevention School Program, revisions.
Senate Bill 310 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 310, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 318, Senator Lewis Young, Higher Education, Janet L. Hoffman Loan Assistance Repayment Program, eligibility.
Senate Bill 318 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 318, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 365, Senator Kagan, Department of Commerce, Nonprofit Organizations Navigator, established. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 365 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 365, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 431 of the President, Registered Apprenticeship Investments for Stronger Economy, the RAISE Act.
Senate Bill 431 is on third reading for final passage, recognizing the Vice Chair of the Budget and Tax on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I just want to make a couple of comments on this very, very important bill. You can imagine that I care a little bit about, given that it's the biggest step forward we're making on registered apprenticeships in 200 years in Maryland. And I really want to appreciate all the members of the Senate, particularly the Finance Committee who worked on this. I also want to thank the governor for taking leadership on this, putting in his legislative package, taking money that we put aside in the budget, applying it to this in a very constructive way. And also 3 of my colleagues who served on the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission. The senator from the 28th District, I'm going to get my districts wrong. Permission to use senators' names?
Senator may proceed.
And Senator Carosa.
38.
And Senator Augustine, along with Senator Ellis, who really contributed to the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission, from which this bill was largely drawn. And it was a great example of a cooperative effort between the Senate, the House, organized labor, business community, and agencies of state government. And finally, I want to thank the Labor Department, Secretary Portia Wu and her team, who believe in apprenticeships and are leading the drive to make Maryland one of the leaders in the United States in bringing apprenticeships across occupations and across industries. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, any further discussion? I thank the Senator for his work to really push this issue as well, certainly. We know that the good Senator cares deeply about apprenticeship, has done great work on this one, so thank you. All right, without any further discussion, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 431, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 488, Senator Jennings, Manufacturing Business Personal Property Tax, Optional Exemption.
Senate Bill 488 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 488, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 491, Senator Gael, General Provisions, Veterans Benefits, Honorable Discharge.
Senate Bill 491 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 491, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 495, Senator Ellis, Opioid Restitution Fund, Authorized Uses.
Senate Bill 495 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 28 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 495, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 534, Senator Kagan, Election Law, Election Judges, Compensation.
Senate Bill 534 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 534, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 612, Senator M. Jackson, State Retirement and Pension System, Deferred Vested Former Members, Return to Service.
Senate Bill 612 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 612, having received a constitutional majority, is declared
Mr. President?
Yes, Senator from the 27th.
My fingers got mixed up on House Bill, I'm sorry, Senate Bill 728. I'm sorry, 495. 495.
All right, 495, and Senator wants to be recorded in
Green.
or change? Vote change?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get the slip. And from what to what, Senator?
From red to green.
Red to green. All right, we will make sure we get that slip in red to green on 495. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, let's see. On to calendar number 44. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 645, Senator Kagan, election law, gubernatorial primary election date.
All right, Senate Bill 645 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 645, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 664, the President, Business Regulation Enforcement for Miscellaneous State Business Licenses Study.
Senate Bill 664 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 664, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 749, Senator Kramer, State Board of Dental Examiners, applicant licensed or certified in another state.
Senate Bill 749 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 749, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 750, Senator Kramer, State Personnel Collective Bargaining, part-time faculty.
Senate Bill 750 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? Yes, recognizing the minority whip on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to pointing out, this will allow for part-time faculty to have collective bargaining rights at our universities. That may make some folks in the chamber want to vote for it even more, but I thought it's important to flag. This is another thing where concern is that it's going to add more cost into the system, and I think faculty have an opportunity to be evaluated on their own merits. So my vote will be red on this bill from a cost perspective, concerns about that, and I just wanted to be sure to make members aware of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. All right, on third reading, final passage, any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 750, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 767, Senator M. Jackson, Calvert County Sheriff, Deputy Sheriffs and Correctional Deputies, collective bargaining.
Senate Bill 767 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 767, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 810, Senator M. Jackson, Board of Trustees for the State Retirement and Pension System, Investment Division, Compensation, and Staffing.
Senate Bill 810 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 810, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 815, Senator Watson, Occupational Licensing and Certification, Criminal History, Prohibited Disclosures.
Senate Bill 815 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 815, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 871, Senator Hester, Department of the Environment, Community Water and Sewage Systems, Cybersecurity Planning and Assessments.
Senate Bill 871 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 871, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 968, Howard County Senators, Howard County, Patuxent River Wildland, Use of Mechanical or Motorized Equipment, Howard County, 5-25.
Senate Bill 968 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 968, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 972, Senator Lamb, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners, alterations.
Senate Bill 972 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 972, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1000, Senator Heddleman, Gaming, Sports Wagering Facilities, Request for Relocation.
Senate Bill 1000 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1000, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. We're going to do two more third reading calendars before going into the second readers. These are ones that came up today. This is calendar 45. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 43, Senator Augustine, Maryland Department of Health Forensic Review Board, established.
Senate Bill 43 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 43, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 80, Senator Kramer, Criminal Law, Animal Abuse or Neglect, Penalties.
Senate Bill 80 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? Senators, this is an emergency bill. If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 80, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 179, Senator Smith, Motor Vehicle Registration Fee Exemption on Employed Disabled Veterans.
Senate Bill 179 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 179, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 205, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Human Services, Adult Protective Services.
Senate Bill 205 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 205, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 280, Senator Simon Nair, Judicial and Public Safety for Service Members Act.
Senate Bill 280 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 280, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 281, Senator Simon Nair, Transportation Equality for Service Members Act.
Senate Bill 281 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 281, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 338, Baltimore County Senators, Baltimore County Speed Monitoring Systems, Interstate 695 and Interstate 83.
Senate Bill 338 is on third reading for final passage. Recognize the senator from the 45th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to explain my vote.
One moment, Senator. Let's, if we can, we got to pull it up first. Are there any senators, any other discussion on the bill before? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Recognize the senator from the 45th. It's 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, colleagues, as I reflect on my green vote for this bill, it's not lost on me that in 2021 we were having the same conversation for a majority black city with a majority black elected body from that standpoint. And colleagues, as I reflect on this conversation, I know that I've never said anything disparaging about any jurisdiction in this body at this moment. Mr. President, as I think about 2021, 90% of that conversation was thoughtful, it was on the merits of the bill, and I think that it was very policy driven. But colleagues, I would say that fear mongering did exist in 2021. There were comments in reference to Baltimore City that when we dealt with speed cameras, that it was dealing with public safety indirectly of transportation. There was conversations around squeegee kids or the correlation made around squeegee kids, and there was also the comments that if implemented 83 speed cameras, that Baltimore City would be a donut hole. Colleagues, I'd just like to set the record straight that public safety, from a national standpoint, are at historic lows in the city of Baltimore and being recognized nationally. Squeegee kids, because we have a mayor, because we have colleagues in this body that are thoughtful about our young folks, it's going in the right direction, and the squeegee is not perceived as what it is at this as it was in 2021. And colleagues, last week there was an article that dealt with the population not only stabilizing in the city of Baltimore, Mr. Chair, they were talking about actually making gains in the city of Baltimore. So it didn't happen because of the speed cameras from 83. But Mr. President, I'd just like to lastly say that as we have future debates, I hope that the same thoughtfulness, the same level of respect, the same level of collegiality will take place and be given to Baltimore City as we have future conversations in any other jurisdiction in this body. Mr. President, one more thing, because it's very important. My colleague in District 11, she's not here, but my colleague in District 24, our former colleagues in District 8 and District 44, they all made good comments in reference to 2021. And I just say to those colleagues that Martin Luther King gave a quote. It's not the words of your opposition, it's the silence of your friends. And I thank you for not being silent that day when we were going through our challenging times. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator. Recognize the Senator from District 7 has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Stand to explain my vote. I'm voting against this. This is my county. This is my jurisdiction. So I'm one of the ones who's voting against it. Several years ago, I did vote against the one in Baltimore City. I did speak against it. My issue was what I call the bottleneck effect, which I do see, because I do, when I drop my daughter off at school, I do have to get on 83 South as I head towards the Pepsi, what I call the Pepsi sign, the Pepsi bottling facility where the speed camera is. It does slow down there. Before you get to it, it's a bottleneck. Once you get through it, people speed back up. That's what I see. That's what I'm afraid is going to happen on 695, where these cameras will go. We have an area on 695 near Lock Raven Boulevard we call Luskin's Hill. There's a sharp turn there. It always bottlenecks there because of the turn. People go slow. Wherever these cameras are going to be, I feel it's going to slow down. Once people get past them, they speed up. Everywhere you see a speed camera, that's exactly what people do. They slow down when they know where they are, and then they speed up. That's my concern. The best type of law enforcement is actually having police out there pulling people over, giving tickets, doing, when they see stuff in the car, actually doing law enforcement. I understand what we're trying to do here, and I know people have said, you got people doing 100 miles an hour, 120 miles an hour. You know what? Somebody's doing that fast, they're not going to slow down because of a speed camera. They're going to roll right past it because they know they'll pay $40 and that's it. That's my issue with this, is it's just going to cause more congestion. So with that, Mr. President, I'll be voting no.
All right. Are there any further senators who wish to explain their vote? Yes. Recognize Senator from the 29th District has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I also am casting a red vote for this bill. And the reason is many administrators, and you hear it, and you heard it in here, well, this will help our highways be safer. Well, if you go up and down the highways and you see other states and the way they've addressed this, they've addressed it when they talked about higher fines, and they did it with police officers, and they did it recruitment and retention. And when you had 100 people driving 100 miles an hour, they would lose their license, right? For $50, you buy a simple screen that goes across your license plate, and you drive as fast as you want, and you, with the 4th generation, and you beat every speed camera out there. These are an attempt to take away from things for police officers and our safety in our communities. That's why I'm voting red. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 33 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 338, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 369, Senator Watson, Public Libraries Automated External Defibrillator Program, Romano A. Russell Act.
Senate Bill 369 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 369, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 456, Senator McKay, Dental Services Qualification for Maryland Dent Care Program.
Senate Bill 456 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 456, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 457, Senator M. Jackson, State Retirement and Pension System Transfers Between Systems Work Group.
Senate Bill 457 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 457, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 555, Chair, Education, Energy, and the Environment, Public Information Act denials pending litigation.
Senate Bill 555 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 555, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 586, Senator Muse, Corporations and Associations, Methodist Church Trust Requirement, Repeal and Disaffiliation Requirements.
Senate Bill 586 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, recognizing the senator from the 28th District has 2 minutes to explain his vote.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. We had something similar last year, and I strongly believe that we as a public body should not be getting into religious issues and how they do their business. And I think we need to kind of find a way of getting out of that because of separation of church and state and just respecting that constitutional issues. And I believe as a state we are not going far enough to respect that national standard of separation of church and state. So therefore I cast a red vote on this bill.
Thank you, Senator. Any further senators wish to explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 42 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 586, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Now let's do one more third reading calendar before we get to these second readers. This is number 46. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 621, Chair, Judicial Proceedings, Courtroom Security, Minimum Adequate Security.
Senate Bill 621 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 621, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 626, Frederick County Senators, Frederick County Sheriff, Salary.
Senate Bill 626 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 626, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 692, Senator M. Jackson, State Retirement and Pension Systems, Alterations and Clarifications.
All right, Senate Bill 692 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 692 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 717, Senator Carrozza, Somerset County Salaries of Local Officials, increase.
Senate Bill 717 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. 43 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 717 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 768, Senator M. Jackson, Correctional Officers Retirement System Membership Clarifications.
Senate Bill 768 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 768 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 828, Senator Smith, Immigration Enforcement Sensitive Locations Access, Guidance, and Policies Protecting Sensitive Locations Act. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 828 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 30 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 828 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 883, Senator James, Post Towing Procedure Work Group Establishment.
Senate Bill 883 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 883 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 915, Baltimore County Senators, Baltimore County Vehicle Laws, Private Roadways, and Residential Communities.
Senate Bill 915 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 915 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1005, Senator Benson, Federally Qualified Healthcare Center Grant Program, Acquisition of Land.
Senate Bill 1005 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1005 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1008, Senator Hayes, Economic Development Small Business Guarantee Fund, alterations.
Senate Bill 1008 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1008 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1026, Senator Bidle, Financial Institutions Consumer Credit Application of Licensing Requirements, Maryland Secondary Market Stability Act of 2025. This is an emergency bill.
Senate Bill 1026 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1026 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1028, Senator Guile, Natural Resources Vessels, Carbon Monoxide Warning Labels, Matthews Law.
Senate Bill 1028 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1028 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. All right, let's go to some of these second readers. Take a little moment here. We got Finance, the Finance Committee here, report number 27. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 376, Senator Kramer, Health Facilities, Delegation of Inspection Authority, Nursing Homes.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I'm going to tell you real fast the purpose of this bill, and it's very important to every single one of you and the most vulnerable that reside in nursing homes in your legislative districts. Colleagues, nursing home inspections are a federal responsibility. The feds, by contract, give that inspection to the states. That's where the problem is right now. Once a year, the state of Maryland is supposed to provide a budget to the feds saying what they need for those inspections. And in fact, over the past 5 years, the state has been receiving on average $3.5 million from the feds to do these nursing home inspections. Colleagues, we are talking about the most very basic, what are referred to as Tier 1 surveys. There's 4 tiers. The most basic is, under state law, get in and inspect those nursing homes once a year. The state adds, all right, they want it once a year, but up to 16 months at least. Get in there and do the inspections. Real fast, I'm going to read to you a couple of articles. The first from WTOP just this past December, a few short months ago. The backlog of nursing home inspections in Maryland goes back years, with just a fraction of the 222 facilities in the state undergoing the required annual surveys over the past 3 years. During a meeting of 2 legislative committees, the department told lawmakers that there are some facilities that have not had an annual survey since 2020. Colleague, these are the most vulnerable in our communities, and for the most basic annual survey, some of these facilities have not been looked at in what's now 5 years. We don't know what's going on in those facilities unless eyes are being put on them, and so there is a lawsuit that has been filed, and in an article in the Washington Post this past summer, the following comes from that article. The lawsuit claims that those residents are often left in soiled clothes or bedding, with their calls for help going unanswered for hours at a time. Some of the plaintiffs developed bed sores, and others are at risk of developing lesions from being left immobile in those conditions for too long. Colleagues, this is a disgrace. 2 years ago, Maryland was one of 11 states failing to comply with their federal contract. But they weren't just failing. They were overwhelmingly failing, so much so that 2 years ago, Maryland was tied with the great state of Kentucky for the second worst record in the nation on its failure to do these inspections. Last year, colleagues, Maryland was no longer tied for dead last. They moved up to second to dead last, tied with Alabama. The only reason they're no longer tied for dead last with Kentucky is Kentucky actually got worse, not that we were getting better. Colleagues, the bill before you allows for any jurisdiction in this state that wants to step in and start fulfilling the requirements of these nursing home inspections can go to the state and get an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and start fulfilling these inspections. Now, I will share with you the reason it's meaningful to me is that for 20 years, Montgomery County did just this, and a stellar, perfect inspection record of getting into every nursing home on an annual basis. And again, I'm going to remind you, this is the most basic of inspections. In that same WTOP article from just 3 months ago, they indicated that Tier 4, where you have complaints, the state was 6,000 inspections short of getting into nursing homes where there were complaints and following up on those. This is a disgrace. It's an embarrassment. And what frustrates me is that the Department of Health was the only entity to come in opposition of this bill. Even the nursing homes came in and said, start getting us inspected. We support the bill. Now, Montgomery County for 20 years had been doing this. The contract expired, and now our 34 nursing homes that are supposed to be inspected once a year, and were in fact inspected once a year, here's the results of the past 4 years. 4 years ago, 3 of the 34 inspected. 3 years ago, 1 of the 34 inspected. 2 years ago, 1, and this past year, 4 homes inspected. Colleagues, I am at a complete and total loss that the Department of Health would be the only entity coming in opposition of a bill that says, here, we are lifting the burden off of you. We'll take over the responsibility. Let the county get back into the business of inspecting these nursing homes. And the state Department of Health said, no, we're going to get it done. We'll get caught up. By the way, that same article in WTOP, here's what the department said, that it will be another 2 to 3 years, 2 to 3 years before they get caught up on these most basic of nursing home inspections. So with that, colleagues, the bill before you has Amendment 1, which is technical. Amendment 2 clarifies the delegation of authority as described and requires the Secretary to enter into a memorandum of understanding with a county within 90 days and specifies that the MOU must be modeled on a previous agreement. Colleagues, I hope that the Department of Health, with passage of this bill off the Senate floor, steps back and embraces this bill when it gets over to the House, stops trying to fight getting the right thing done. Mr. President, I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 376 is hereby ordered printed for 3rd reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 854, Senator Lewis Young, Health Occupation License Direct Entry Midwives, revisions, favorable with 1 amendment.
Recognizing the senator from District 12 as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 854, as amended, specifies that the practice of direct entry midwifery is independent and does not require oversight by another healthcare practitioner. The scope of practice direct entry midwifery and the medical conditions under which a licensed direct entry midwife must consult or transfer the care of a patient are altered. The bill number 1 specifies that direct entry midwives are subject to reporting requirements adopted by the board in regulation after specified consultation. Number 2, it alters the requirements for specified written plans and procedures for hospital transfer. Number 3, it clarifies the actions of the Board of Nursing that it may take if an applicant who's practicing direct entry midwifery or a licensed direct entry midwife violates a ground for discipline. Number 4, it extends the termination date for provisions which govern direct entry midwives by 5 years to July 1st, 2030. And finally, it makes stylistic and conforming changes. There is an amendment. The amendment retains the practice of direct entry midwifery, including notifying a pediatric healthcare practitioner within 24 hours after delivery. It makes additional changes to the listed conditions requiring transfer, consultation, immediate emergency transfer. It requires a direct entry midwife accompany a patient to the hospital only if they are determined to be appropriate by the midwife and the receiving healthcare provider. It requires a direct entry midwife to provide records as determined by the board and regulations. It establishes that a licensed direct entry midwife shall be subject to reporting requirements adopted by the board and regulations in consultation with the advisory board and other stakeholders. There is no fiscal impact. Move the adoption of the amendment and the favorable committee report.
All right, floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 854 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 894, Senator M. Washington, Office of Social Equity, Community Reinvestment and Repair Fund, Advisory Board and Modifications, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Vice Chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 894, as amended, requires the Office of Social Equity to oversee the Community Reinvestment Repair Fund with the assistance of the Comptroller. OSC must also oversee the appropriation of the funds and the training of the fund recipients. The bill also repeals several existing reporting requirements for OSC and shifts those reporting requirements to the counties that receive the CFFR funding. Counties must also develop a plan which must be established before distributing funds, develop in consultation with stakeholders, and be subject of a public hearing before finalization. Counties must hold the CRRF funds separately from other funds and may use up to 15% of the CRRF funds for administrative expenses. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes the language that would have established an advisory board, transferred administration of CRRF from the Comptroller to OSC, and prohibited a county from using a third party, such as a local nonprofit, for administration of the funds. I move the amendments and adoption of favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 894 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1021, Senator C. Jackson, Business Relations, Cemeteries, Requirements for Sale or Transfer or Government Acquisition, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the bill sponsor as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1021 prohibits a registered cemeterian, permit holder, or owner of a cemetery that is exempt from registration and permitting requirement from selling or transferring a cemetery in whole or in part to another person without the approval of the Director of the Office of Cemetery Oversight. The bill also establishes requirements that must be met before the Director of Cemetery Oversight approves a sale or transfer of a cemetery and authorizes the state, a county, or municipality to acquire an abandoned cemetery for specified purposes. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 authorizes a party who disputes the decision of the Director regarding the sale under the bill to bring an action in accordance with the Maryland rules, and it exempts a religious organization from certain provisions in the bill. There is no fiscal impact. The bill passed the committee unanimously. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 1021 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, Finance has another one here. Report number 28. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 740, Senator Folden, Healthcare Facilities, Warrior Community Members, SFC Matthew Fast Act for Warrior Healthcare, favorable with 2 amendments.
All right, Senate Bill, recognize the chair of the committee is the floor leader.
Thank you. Our floor leader isn't present at the moment, so let me try and do this, Mr. President. Thank you. Senate Bill 740 is amended, authorizes each healthcare facility to screen each patient for information related to the patient's eligibility as a service member, community member, and include the information in the patient's medical record for the purpose of improving healthcare equity for service member and community members. Each healthcare facility may identify service member community members as a vulnerable population and comply with the standards associated with the National Patient Safety Goal to improve healthcare quality. Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment 2 alters the definition of the community members, strikes a reporting requirement, and alters the bill to authorize the process described rather than require it. There was no opposition at the committee hearing. I move the amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 740 is hereby ordered, printed for 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 984, Senator A. Washington, Private Passenger Motor Vehicle Insurance, Use of Telematics Systems, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill, as amended, prohibits an insurer that issues auto insurance policies in the state from using data obtained from a program that measures the operation of a vehicle to increase premiums in increments 6 months or less, or to cancel or refuse to renew a private passenger automobile insurance policy. The bill requires insurers to disclose to the insured the use of obtained data relating to the insured driving habits and creates an appeals process for policyholders to correct or appeal data believed to be erroneous. The Maryland Insurance Administration must adopt regulations to implement the bill, including specified limitations on the use of data by the insurers. Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 does exactly what I just said previously. I move the amendments and adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 984 is hereby ordered, printed for 3rd reading. All right, let's go to budget and taxation. This is calendar number 11. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 127, Senator Kagan, State Government Grants and Contracts, Reimbursement of Indirect Costs.
Recognize the senator from Montgomery County as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 127 just allows nonprofits to utilize the same rate of reimbursement for indirect costs that the Office of Management and Budget would allow, up to the 15%. There are 2 committee amendments. The first is technical, and the second does exactly what I says, is just bringing it up to, allowing the flexibility to bring it up to the 15% of OMB standard. I would move the 2 committee amendments and the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 127 is hereby ordered, printed for 3rd reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 270, Senator Jackson, Board of Trustees of the Maryland Teachers and State Employees Supplemental Retirement Plans, Automatic Enrollment, favorable 2 amendments.
Senate Bill 270. Oh, yes, you may. Floor leader here. Recognize the senator from the 27th.
Mr. President, colleagues, Senate Bill 270, as amended, requires the Board of Trustees of the Maryland Teachers and State Employees Supplemental Pension Plan or Retirement Plan to automatically enroll all eligible state employees hired on or after January 2026 in a supplemental retirement plan. Employees may opt out of automatic enrollment within 90 days of the first automatic deduction of the employee's contribution from wages. There are 2 amendments. First is technical. The second clarifies the institution of higher education may enroll their employees in a supplemental plan. The institution chooses, caps the default pay period deduction of $25, requires MSRP or the retirement plan to offer virtual or in-person counseling, and adds the notice requirements information on the default payroll deduction in effect. Move adoption of the committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 270 is hereby ordered printed for third
Thank
reading.
you. Sorry about that.
I wish I had been automatically enrolled. Lost out on 8 years on it. Stupid. All right, clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 599, Senator Hedelman, Behavioral Health Crisis Response Grant Program funding.
Recognizing the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Senate Bill 599 continues a program that's been in effect in many of our counties, and it requires the governor to include $5 million in the budget for fiscal years 27 through 29 for the Behavioral Health Crisis Response Grant Program. There are no amendments, and move for the adoption of the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the favorable committee report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 599 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 814, Senator Watson, Local Government Development Impact Fees, Surcharges, and Excise Taxes Reporting. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 27th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, Senate Bill 814 requires by July 1 specified counties to annually report information regarding the collection and use of development impact fees, surcharges, and excise taxes. Committee amendments, there are 2. The first is technical, the second alters the information to be provided in the report, requires annual reports of all local laws for these types of fees and taxes, and changes the recipients of these reports from the General Assembly to the Department of Planning. Move adoption of the committee amendment and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 2 committee amendments are adopted. Question now is on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 814 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 843, Senator Hershey, School Construction Low Cost Share Alterations. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the vice chair as the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As we all know, over the years, we've worked very hard to help all our jurisdictions improve their school buildings. Build new school buildings when they need new ones, and rehab or replace them when they get old. And different jurisdictions have different situations. A district like mine in Prince George's County has hundreds of school buildings. And then there's Kent County, which has 1 high school and 1 middle school and 3 elementary schools. And so this bill as amended would basically increase the amount of state share in helping them build a new middle school to the extent that the cost per student of that school is within range of other middle schools, even higher actually, because it'll be built later than some of the other middle schools. So the 2 amendments, one that puts it in the form that I just described, the second puts a 3-year sunset on the bill. I move the favorable report and the amendments.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 2 amendments in the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognize the minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. We appreciate the Budget and Taxation Committee trying to help us with this. As the floor leader mentioned, Kent County has a single middle school, and this would help with the funding to try to replace that middle school. In fact, actually going to add another grade to it, so it'll include 5th grade as well too. We've been working on this for a number of years and trying to find out the right balance on the additional state share that we could get to help with this project. But I think that the way that the bill has been amended might make the purpose of the bill difficult to achieve. So if we could special order this bill until the next session and hopefully work with the committee on trying to see if we can resolve that situation.
Move to special order the bill. Any
That's
objections?
fine.
No objections. Any objections from the floor? Without objection, the bill will be special ordered to the next legislative session. Not session, sorry. Next floor session. Floor session. All right. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 880, Senator Gazzone, Governor's Office for Children, Boys and Girls Clubs of Maryland, grant funding. Favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognize the senator from the 45th District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 880, as amended, requires the governor to include $250,000 in the annual budget with the Governor's Office of Children and to provide the grants operating expenses of the Boys and Girls Club of Maryland. There are 2 amendments, Mr. President. Committee amendment number 1 makes technical changes to the title, and amendments number 2 alters the funding to be $250,000 for each of the fiscal years 2027 through 2030 and as co-sponsors. Move adoption of the committee report, Mr. President.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the two committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the two committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 880 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 962, Senator Mouts, Municipalities Legislative Audit Exemption, favorable with one amendment.
Recognize the senator from the 29th as the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 962 establishes an exemption from the annual audit requirement for a municipality in any fiscal year in which municipal award revenues are less than $100,000. A municipality that qualifies for an audit exemption under the bill would still be required to file an annual uniform financial report with the Department of Legislative Services. If their report indicates a financial or accounting irregularity or concern, the Joint Audit and Evaluation Committee may effectively rescind the exemption. There was one amendment that clarifies that when the exemption is rescinded, the municipality must conduct the audit consistent with current law. I move the adoption of the committee amendment and favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves to the adoption of the one committee amendment and the favorable committee report. On the amendment, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the one committee amendment is adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 962 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Let's go to stay with budget and taxes. Report number 12. Clerk will read the bill.
Senate Bill 154, Senator Heddleman, Access to Counsel and Evictions Task Force Termination and Special Fund, favorable with 4 amendments.
Recognize the bill sponsor is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This bill is amended, and it actually, instead of getting rid of the sunset in perpetuity, it just extends it for 1 year. So the program is funded through fiscal year 2028. It also changes the where the task force that has been overseeing the implementation of this really important program is cited, from the AG's office to the Department of Housing and Community Development. There are 4 amendments. The first is technical. The second extends the funding, like I just said, through 28 instead of making it permanent. The third alters the existing task force in terms of membership staffing and authorizes a stipend to certain members of the committee. And the fourth alters the effective date to June 1, 2025. I move the adoption of the committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
All right. Floor leader moves to the adoption of the 4 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the 4 committee amendments are adopted. Question now on the amended report. Any discussion? Any objection? Yes, recognize the minority whip on the report.
Just like to know if the amendment can lay over under the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule.
We've adopted the amendments.
Okay.
That's
okay. It's all right.
Okay. On the
no problem.
All right. On the report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amended report is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 154 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. All right, we've got a judicial report, proceedings report. Let's go to number 26. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 927, Senator Smith, Corporations and Associations Limited Equity Housing Cooperatives Establishment, favorable.
All right, recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 927. This bill authorizes a Maryland non-stock corporation to convert a limited equity housing cooperative, an LEHC, and establishes specified procedures and requirements for the conversion. The Department of Housing and Community Development may establish additional rights and requirements for the LEC as specified, and a program that provides grants to the Maryland non-stock corporations to promote the establishment of LECs. The property owned by the LECs that complies with this bill's requirements is exempt from state property tax for the first 5 taxable years. Local governments are authorized to grant a local property tax as specified. The provisions of the bill related to the state property tax exemption and the local property tax credit take effect June 1st, 2026. Mr. President, there are no committee amendments. I do have an amendment at the desk, though, before we adopt the favorable report.
On the report, on the favorable committee report, any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the favorable committee report is adopted. The senator has amendments that the pages will collect and distribute, and senator, give us just a moment to load it up here. All right, sir, may explain the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So as the bill came in, there were some serious fiscal concerns. The amendment in part assuages those concerns by removing a reporting requirement or a records-keeping requirement for SSTAT. It also strikes the provisions for the tax abatement, so the tax abatement is no longer there. So the fiscal impact is addressed through this amendment. This amendment further addresses some of the concerns that the Business Law Association or the Corporate Law section of the Maryland Bar Association had. We ran that by them over the weekend. There are technical and clarifying changes that are incorporated in this amendment to address their concerns. And with that, Mr. President, I'd move for the amendment.
All right, floor leader moves the amendment. Any discussion? Any objections? Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Are there any further amendments to the bill or its title? Seeing none, Senate Bill 927 is hereby ordered printed for third reading. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 977, Senator Lamb, State and Local Agencies, Enforcement of Federal Immigration Law, Restrictions on Access to Information, Maryland Data Privacy Act, favorable with 2 amendments.
Recognizing Chair of the Committee is the floor leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As amended, this bill prohibits certain entities that obtain records created by the state or local government that contain personal information from sharing those records for the purposes of resale or immigration enforcement in certain circumstances. And expands existing provisions that restrict information sharing for the purposes of immigration enforcement. Mr. President, there are 2 amendments. Amendment number 1 is technical, and amendment number 2 adds prohibitions on sharing records with personal information and strikes provisions from the bill as drafted. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report.
Floor leader moves for the adoption of the 2 committee amendments and the favorable committee report. On the amendments, recognizing the minority whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think there's a number of unanswered questions on this as the amendments, because of the amendments, so I'd like to ask that the bill and the amendment lie over under the rule.
All right, the senator's motion is in order. The bill and the amendments will lie over under the rule. Madam Secretary, could we please ring the bells? Madam Clerk, could we please call the roll?
Mr. President.
All right. Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 42 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session. We're going to third reading calendar number 47. Let's see how far we can get. Clerk, read the first bill.
Senate Bill 93, Senator Kramer, Election Law Absentee Ballots, Notice to Request Application.
Senate Bill 93 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 93, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 130, Senator Benson, Education, Student Personal Electronic Device Use Policy Required.
Senate Bill 130 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 130, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 148, Senator Ellis, State Board of Public Accountancy, Emeritus Status.
Senate Bill 148 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 148, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 149, Senator Hester, Climate Change Adaptation and Mitigation, Total Assessed Cost of Greenhouse Gas Emissions, Study and Reports.
Senate Bill 149 is on third reading for final passage. Recognizing the minority leader on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Just on the bill, I know that this has been changed to a study and reporting, and we've discussed the potentially different businesses that would have to pay into this fund if it were to be implemented. But you know, again, the concern is that we are doing a lot this legislative session that seems to be on the backs of businesses, and we've just recently talked about a business-to-business service tax. We're talking about potentially having to have small businesses use their personal tax returns as pass-through entities to possibly pay more. And we're even though we're not passing a bill that adds this carbon tax to businesses, we are discussing it. And businesses take note of these types of things that we are going about and talking about and asking in this case, the comptroller's office to do a report. So again, while I recognize, why we're trying to do some of these things and what we're looking at, I also am not sure that everybody recognizes the nexus between, somebody emitting carbon, greenhouse gas emissions and having flooding in downtown Annapolis docks. And so as you talk about trying to have a work group or a study that analyzes this and what the cost may be, you're taking a very prescriptive measure and an assumption that these individuals are truly responsible for something that they may not be. And again, I think it's concerning when we have businesses out there that are already feeling under attack, that are already feeling that they may, again, start to look elsewhere to have their businesses, that we continue with bills like this. Again, even though it's a study, it sends a signal, and for that reason, I'll be voting against it. I'm also very concerned that the comptroller's office is going to take on this responsibility. There seems to be more and more things that are getting shifted over to that office. Again, which as the tax collectors, maybe there is a nexus to that, but at the same time, I think the comptroller's office has a number of things that they should be focusing on and not necessarily having to lead this study. So with that, Mr. President, I'll be voting red.
Thank you, Senator. Recognize Senator from District 19.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Real fast. Colleagues, since the mid-1950s, the massive fossil fuel industry knew exactly what they were doing, destroying our climate, dramatically changing our weather. Going back to the 1950s, they knew the pollution from their products were going to cause dramatic destruction. And in fact, by the 1970s, they were modeling exactly the outcomes that we are seeing today with regard to the temperature change, the consequences with regard to the wildfires we see, the severe drought in the Midwest, the flooding, the changing hurricane and tornado patterns. They had it modeled in the mid-1970s. They knew exactly what was happening. Now, the bill before you is nothing more than a study to take a look at what right now every one of your constituents is paying for, and that's the disaster of the climate crisis that is before us. You're paying for it. Your constituents are paying for it. Now, with all due respect to my good friend, we just heard, oh, well, we're piling on to small businesses and what are we doing here in the state? Colleagues, let me tell you who this bill affects. It affects ExxonMobil. It affects Shell Oil. It affects the largest, I believe, of the Saudi Arabian oil production companies. None of the businesses that this bill affects are located here in the great state of Maryland. These are the largest fossil fuel companies on the planet. That's who this bill affects, and the study is simply, let's take a look who should be responsible for the costs of the climate crisis. Your constituents paying the price with asthma in our urban communities, our farmers who now don't have water for their crops because of the climate crisis, our friends, constituent, and neighbors who live along the coastal areas. Maryland is number 2 to only Louisiana with tidal coast in the nation. That's who's paying the cost. The study will simply look at it and go, wow, maybe the folks that created this disaster should be responsible for absorbing some of that cost. Simply a study. So, colleagues, my sentiment is you can put a green vote up and say, yep, I'm going home and telling my constituents I fought for you so that you're not paying these costs. Or, in the alternative, you can put up a red vote and go home and look your constituents in the eye and simply say, I rolled with the big fossil fuel industry. I hope you'll vote for me in the next election. I'll be putting up a green vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right, question, or recognizing the minority whip on the third reader.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I wish that I could speak with such certainty about something as complicated as international and historical weather patterns as this bill sought to speak. It's been amended down to a study, and as I look at the whereas clauses, it never ceases to amaze me the arrogance of mankind that we know with certainty. You heard my friend from Montgomery County, who is very passionate in his advocacy for lots of different things. Earlier today, he was up on a bill that I totally agree with about the health department and inspecting nursing homes. But on this one, I respectfully disagree. The list of weather happenings that get climate change gets blamed for is always interesting too. Wildfires that have been documented for hundreds, even thousands of years in certain parts of our country and around the world get blamed on climate change. We've had floods for thousands of years. There was actually a flood once that consumed the entire world, depending on which historical documents you read. But it's all climate change, and it's only in the last 70 years. Somehow, according to the whereas clauses of a bill, which are always interesting to read, this says, based on decades of research, it is now possible to determine with great accuracy the share of greenhouse gases released into the atmosphere by specific fossil fuel companies over the last 70 years or more, making it possible to assign liability and require compensation from companies commensurate with their emissions during a given time period. That is incredibly specific. If you believe that, I have some oceanfront property in Massachusetts I could sell you. President Obama doesn't believe it because he bought a giant mansion right on the coast of Martha's Vineyard. If this was so true, why would people like President Obama and numerous other celebrities that talk all the time about the doom that's coming anytime from climate change, the existential threat, why would they be buying mansions on the side of a beach? Why would insurance companies still be writing insurance plans going out 30, 40, 50 years? Climate change, the climate does change. And I think all of us can buy the idea that we contribute to our environment. Pollution is not a good thing. But this belief that for 70 years we know exactly, based on just that 70 years, that this is a unique time that has never happened before in our world history, even though we weren't measuring weather thousands of years ago in this way, or temperatures. And we know that we had global ice ages and also other very hot periods in our history. And somehow we know with certainty that these oil companies, and boy, the whereas clauses, they could even tell you, I guess, which oil company. I guess Exxon's responsible for the weather that's above Annapolis, and maybe it's BP that's responsible for the weather above Los Angeles or Cumberland. I don't know. It's amazing to me, the arrogance of the certainty that we hear when we talk about climate change. And my friend from the Eastern Shore, the minority leader, is right. This sends a powerful message to businesses that we're willing to traffic in this kind of belief system, and it is a belief system. It isn't that there isn't evidence of different things and different impacts, but there's this belief system that we're in this existential crisis. I've had people come to me trembling with fear that the world's going to end in 10 or 15 years. And it's like I have to calm them down and say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We've had rises in temperature. We've had severe weather before. Doesn't mean we don't need to get a handle on pollution, which we have been working on. So oil companies know, I'm sure they hid things that were bad for our environment. I have no doubt about that. But this idea that on this last whereas clause that we can say specific fossil fuel companies, we can assign specific liability because we don't know anything. And to even take time and comptroller resources to study this, to me, it is a distraction from much larger issues. If you don't know what the variance in temperature was 1,000 years ago with reliability, how can you say now is an existential crisis? You don't know. And if you're not going to at least go back and study the history from thousands of years ago, you don't know. So, Mr. President, my vote will be read on this because I think our time could be better used figuring out how we can mitigate some of the damages that have happened to our environment, figuring out how we can address some of these issues. But when you say everything is a crisis and every weather pattern is attributed to fossil fuel pollution, you're really doing a discredit to the complexity and the majesty of nature and creation. And then finally, Exxon or Citgo or BP or any of these oil companies are not going to be paying fees that they don't pass on to consumers anyway. So the idea that we would somehow get a windfall is also, I think, very far-fetched. So, Mr. President, that's why my vote will be read, because I'd like us to spend time working on things that really would be worthwhile as it relates to both the environment, energy, and our overall well-being and health as a state. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator. All right. Recognize the Senator from District 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I think we heard that there were several things that we didn't know, which is why this study is so darn important. I don't know if you really feel like we don't know these things, why you wouldn't want to cast a green vote for a great study. I was down there the day after Ellicott City flooded with a mask on and muck boots and helping out the small business owners on Main Street, those same small business owners who are down here in Annapolis when it floods, in Baltimore City when it floods, on the Eastern Shore when it floods. And right now, we are oversubscribed in our asks for federal building resilient infrastructures and community grants that we get from FEMA, funding that under this administration may be in jeopardy, colleagues. And I would say that, what the message that this bill sends to small businesses is that we are all at risk from climate change. And if you come to Maryland, you locate your small business in Maryland, you will not be on your own when disaster befalls you. The state will help you bear the burden of rebuilding because we have done the work. We've done the study. We know exactly how much climate change has cost and how much it will cost going forward. And therefore, colleagues, I am proud to throw up my green vote on this board because there's a lot we don't know, and this study will answer those questions. And then we can move forward in a pragmatic sense, having our engineering analysis done and our economic analysis done, and knowing whether or not any of this can be passed on to customers. So with that, colleagues, I urge your green vote on this great study with the potential to bring billions of dollars back to the state of Maryland so your constituents and taxpayers do not have to pay. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. On third reader, any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 149, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 175, Senator Lewis Young, Public Safety Fuel Gas Piping Systems and Corrugated Stainless Steel, Tubing Prohibitions and Study.
Senate Bill 175 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 41 votes in the affirmative. Senate Bill 175, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 215, Chair, Finance Committee, Cannabis Reform Revisions.
Senate Bill 215 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 31 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 215, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 343, Senator Sid Norris, State's Attorneys, Reconstruction of Task Force to study transparency standards for state's attorneys.
Senate Bill 343 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 34 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 343, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 396, Senator McKay, Public Safety Officer, Performance of Duties, Death Benefits.
Senate Bill 396 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 396, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 423, Senator Bidel, Maryland Medical Practice Act and the Maryland Physicians Assistance Act, revisions.
Senate Bill 423 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 423, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 466, the President, Criminal Law, Financial Exploitation of Vulnerable and Senior Adults.
Senate Bill 466 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 466, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. All right, let's go to calendar 48.
Mr. President?
Yes, recognize the senator from the 38th district.
Yes, I wanted to vote on SB 175, yay.
175 in the affirmative. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered.
And then a change vote on SB 343, yay to nay.
Yay to nay on 343. Senator, do we have the changed vote form?
I have them right here.
Excellent. All right. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Let's go to calendar 48. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 471, Senator Rosa Pepp, Vehicle Laws, Motor Vehicle Administration, 3-hour roadway safety driving education program requirements.
Senate Bill 471 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 471, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 525, Senator Charles, Prince George's County, Illegal Dumping and Litter Control Law, Video Evidence and Reward Program.
Senate Bill 525 is on third reading for final passage. Okay, third reading, final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 525, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 543, Senator Kagan, Election Law, Provisional Ballots, Nonpartisan Board of Education Contest.
Senate Bill 543 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please hold that. Scratch that. Moving too quickly. Yes, on third reading, recognize the minority whip.
I'm asking, if I can ask the floor leader, I want to ask one clarifying question.
Will the floor leader yield? Senator may proceed.
This came up, I think, Friday, and there was a lot of different things going on, and I heard part of your explanation, but I just want to be sure I understand this. So this is independents can vote in primaries for Board of Education.
Correct.
Right.
Unaffiliated.
Right. Unaffiliated. Or third party, if you're registered with a third party.
Correct.
Which we only have a
Anyone
couple
can vote for Board of
for
Education.
Board of Education because it's nonpartisan.
Correct.
Um,
In a primary.
Yeah.
And obviously in a general.
Yeah, we got to find a way to do that for circuit court judge primaries too, in my opinion.
I'm with you,
But
actually.
that's a different issue. So I go to the reason you need this bill, if I remember your explanation correctly, is I say I'm a Republican, I get a Republican ballot, but it turns out I'm actually unaffiliated. And I vote the Republican ballot and I vote for my school board choices, but I'm actually unaffiliated. Right now, under current law, my whole ballot is spoiled because I am not, in fact, Republican or Democrat, depending on the person.
You're not eligible
I'm
to
not
vote
eligible
for
to vote.
any of those races except for school board.
This changes it to where my school board votes for Jimmy and Smith and Susie's Thompson still count, right?
Yes, if this
How
bill
does
passes.
Only concern would be, how do we, does every board just have to keep track and just put them in a separate box? I mean, is that how it would work?
So because you are registered in this scenario, because you, not you, but because
The
a
person.
voter is registered as unaffiliated and therefore would not be eligible to vote the Republican ballot, but insisted on voting the Republican ballot, the judge would put that ballot in with the provisional ballots because it can't be counted because it's not an eligible ballot
right.
the way it was cast. Our local boards of elections go through every provisional ballot one by one to see which can be counted and which can't before they're scanned, before they're tabulated, all that. So today, this voter's entire ballot would be rejected.
Right.
This bill, if passed and signed into law, would allow that person's vote just for school board, because everything else would be rejected, that just the school board would be duplicated onto a blank ballot and then run through the scanner so it could be tabulated.
And there would then be the paper trail of the spoiled ballot, the duplicated ballot, and their choice.
Not spoiled, but ineligible,
ineligible.
to use another word, yes.
Well, that's
so
true, 'cause spoiled is
ineligible-
different. Right, gotcha.
Ineligible ballot would be kept along with
Okay.
the one that will be valid because it was duplicated just for school board.
Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. While I am tempted to say I'm voting, I will vote no because I think you should know what you're voting and be able to get the party right. I think it's probably a good reform, so we'll be voting yes for the bill. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. All right, bill remains on third reading for final passage. Any further discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 38 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 543, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 544, Senator Bailey, Food Establishments, Portable Chemical Toilets.
Senate Bill 544 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote. If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 544, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 590, Senator King, Motor Vehicles, Reckless, Negligent, and Aggressive Driving, Sergeant Patrick Kep Act.
Senate Bill 590 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 590, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 608, Senator Augustine, Criminal Procedure, U, Non-Immigrant Status Petitions.
Senate Bill 608 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 32 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 608, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 633, Senator Kagan, Campaign Finance, Political Organizations, Disclosures on Solicitations, Stop Scam PACs Act.
Senate Bill 633 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 633, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 699, Senator Heddleman, Public Safety, Rape Testing, Tracking Program, and Grant Fund.
Senate Bill 669 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 669, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 710, Senator King, Criminal Law, Motor Vehicle, Criminal Negligence, Sergeant Patrick Keep Act.
Senate Bill 710 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 710, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 764, Senator Zucker, State Designations, State Mineral, Chromite, State Mineral Act.
Senate Bill 764 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, excuse me. Yes, recognize the senator from District 11.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. As I think I told the sponsor of the bill over the weekend, I saw this on the floor last week and I was like, okay. And then I read over the weekend the wonderful article in Maryland Matters and the multi-year effort that had been put on this, and the added discovery that chromite was found in District 11. So I am enthusiastically supporting this bill.
Wonderful. Excellent. All right. Any further discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote? Explain their vote? Doesn't like chromite? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 764, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Yes, recognize the senator from District 6.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to change my vote. Senate Bill 543 from a nay to a yay. I did fill it out.
Excellent. 543 yea. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 343, I'd like to be recorded in the green.
In the green, a switch or just initial?
Just
a
initial.
vote. All right, excellent. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. Last one, calendar 49. Clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 770, Senator Guile, Public Schools and Youth Services Crisis Support and Assistance and Work Group Study.
Senate Bill 770 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 770, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 820, Senator Watson, Municipalities Enforcement of Ordinances and Resolutions.
Senate Bill 820 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 35 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 820, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 845, Senator Heddleman, Local Education Agencies, Educator Screening, Education ID Clearinghouse, School Personal Vetting and Hiring Transparency Act.
Senate Bill 845 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 845, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 848, Senator Gazzone, Public Health Abortion Grant Program Establishment.
Senate Bill 848 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 29 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 848, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 856, Senator Henson, Mold Landlord Requirement Regulations, Maryland Tenant Mold Protection Act.
Senate Bill 856 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 856 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 873, Senator Smith, Work Group to Study Adoption of a Statute for Assault in the Third Degree.
Senate Bill 873 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 873 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 980, Senator Quarterman, Natural Resources, Maryland Heritage Areas Authority, Funding and Grants.
Senate Bill 980 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 980 having received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk will read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1023, Senator C. Jackson, Employment Discrimination, Fire and Rescue, Public Safety Employees, Use of Medical Cannabis.
Senate Bill 1023 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. Hey, congratulations. Didn't realize that was the first one. All right. Very good. All right. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1030, Senator Attar, Baltimore County and Baltimore City Vehicle Laws, Lighting on Privately Owned Vehicles.
Senate Bill 1030 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 43 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1030 have received a constitutional majority is declared passed. Clerk, read the next bill.
Senate Bill 1036, Senator Gazone, Howard County Alcoholic Beverages, Class D Licenses, Delivery, Howard County, 21-25.
Senate Bill 1036 is on third reading for final passage. Any discussion? If not, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. President,
Has everyone recorded their vote? Anyone wish to change their vote, explain their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. With 44 votes in the affirmative, Senate Bill 1036 have received a constitutional majority. Let's pass some delivery local bills. Excellent. All right. Yes, Regulated Senator, 20th District.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd love to be recording the green on Senate Bill 770.
770, a switch?
No, just
a 770
the
in the
button
green?
didn't work when I was pushing really.
It needs some more grease on it.
Need more grease,
Yes,
yes, Mr.
excellent.
President.
All right. Excellent. All right.
Thank
Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from District 12.
Red to green on Senate Bill 845.
Was wondering about that one. 845. All right. Red to green. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from District 2.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 93 from green to red, please.
93, green to red. And do we have the form?
Will in a minute.
Excellent. All right. Green to red and 93. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Recognize Senator from the 29th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Green to red, Senate Bill 1023.
1023, green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 7th District.
1023, green to red. I'm getting the form.
Okay, 1023. We've got a little bit of a waterfall here. Form's coming. Green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 38th.
Thank you. Senate Bill 1023, yea to nay, and Senate Bill 820, yea to nay.
Okay, 1023, yea to nay. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. 820. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right, let's see. Recognize Senator from Cecil County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1023, green to red.
1023, green to red. Do we have the form? Appears so. Yes. Forms collected. Oh, good. Okay. Without objection, so ordered. Yes, Senator from Frederick City.
SB 828 green, please.
828 in the green. 828 in the green. No form needed, we're good, just in the green, not a switch. Is that correct? Okay. All right, any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Senator from the 37th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to change the vote on Senate Bill 1023 from green to red.
1023 from green to red. We have the form, Senator. It's coming. All right. 1023 green to red. Any objections? Without objection, so ordered. All right. That carries. That desk is clear. Desk is clear. That's great. So. All right, let's go ahead and look at, thinking 315 to come back. That'll work. Recognize the Chair of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance is off till 3:15 when we come back to the floor.
All right, and chamber will be secured, so folks, if you want to leave your stuff here, for those we're not going back to committee. Yes, Education, Energy, and the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. President. We going to vote one bill, so let's meet in the committee room at 1 hour from now at 2:50, and just vote one bill, and then we'll be good. Okay. 250. 1 hour from right now.
Excellent.
10 to 3.
250. Budget and tax. Nothing. Judicial proceedings.
Judicial Proceedings Committee will meet at 2:15 for a very brief but important meeting.
Okay. 2:15. Any other standing committees? Senator, or Chair of Executive Nominations, are we on today?
Yes, Executive Nominations Committee will meet at 5 p.m. in the Amos hearing room.
5 p.m. All right, any further announcements? If not, let's go ahead and do a quorum call.
Mr. President?
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. With 43 members in the chamber and a quorum being present, the Senate of Maryland remains in session, recognizing the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate of Maryland stand in recess until 3:15 promptly this afternoon.
Senator, I think we may want to adjourn.
I think I may want to adjourn.
Is that all right?
I move
Yes.
that the
See
Senate
if
of
we can
Maryland
revise our-
stand adjourned until 3:15 promptly this afternoon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Senator. Yes, without objection, so ordered. Stay safe. Have a wonderful day. And yes, it will be secure in the chamber.